Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode of Cinema Smackdown. My name is Drew Bronson, and I had a hard time going to sleep last night. This week, we're mainly going to be discussing two things: Disney's Wish and Survivor Series War Games. Now, not just the War Games themselves, but the show as a whole, because there is so much that happened last night. It's still hard to wrap my head around everything. But we're going to talk about that and more this week. But let's get started with Disney's Wish. As you guys have seen, throughout the past year or so, Walt Disney Studios has been celebrating 100 years of Disney animation, dating all the way back to their first project, Snow White. Now, it has all been leading up to their newest movie, Wish, which just came out this past Wednesday. And it really is a celebration of the past 100 years of Disney animation and music. And we can clearly see and hear that, because you could tell like there are 2D and 3D elements that are used throughout the movie, as well as how much their songs and their music has evolved. Like, it's come such a long way, and yet at the same time, they're only going to be going further and continuing to raise the bar for what they can do for their movies and their projects going forward. Now, I find the movie itself brilliant. The casting were great choices, having Ariana DeBose, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, as the voice of Asha, Chris Pine as King Magnifico, and the popular voice of Alan Tudyk as Valentino the Goat. Going into the movie, I wondered how Chris Pine would do in voice acting, because I've just seen him in live action acting. Haven't seen a lot of him voice acting, and he did a really good job. His song too, he killed it. I mean, but one of the best voice acting performances in this movie, I have to give to Alan Tudyk, because he, as of late, has become one of the more recognizable voices in Disney right now. Having voice characters like King Candy in Wreck-It Ralph, Hey Hey the Chicken in Moana, Nosmore in Wreck-It Ralph 2, among many more Disney characters throughout the past decade. A little more than that. But the songs overall were brilliant. My personal favorite one is Knowing What We Know Now, which is where Asha and her friends kind of rally and get a game plan together to stop King Magnifico and get everyone's wishes back to the residents of Rosas. Because I don't know about you guys, but every time I hear that song, it's like, you know that feeling you get when Optimus Prime is giving one of his speeches at the end of the movie, and it makes you want to rise out of your seat and feels like you yourself are getting ready to go to war. That's the kind of feeling I get when listening to this song, but it could just be me. Overall, Wish I find to be a beautiful movie. It can be enjoyed by everybody, and it is definitely worth watching multiple times. Now, before I get started talking about Survivor Series, I just want to say real quick that it easily had the biggest moment, like the biggest return in the past 5 years. Like, it is a return that it will be talked about for years to come. But before we talk about who came back, let's run through each match individually. Kicking off War Games was the Women's War Games match. It was Damage Control, members Kairi Sane, Asuka, the Women's Champion Io Sky, and Bayley, taking on the team of Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Bianca Belair. Going into this match, the fans voted that Belair's team would have the War Games advantage, so they had that going into the match, as was announced on the kickoff show. The first two competitors to start the match were Becky Lynch and Bayley. These two women have such a storied history with each other, it only makes sense that they are the ones to start the match. Now, as the clock was ticking by, alternating members from each team were entering the match, and just before Asuka enters the match, one of my favorite moments that actually happened one time before happened again for the second time last night. So my friends and I were watching the match, and we see Io Sky sitting on top of the War Games cage, slowly using long chain link to bring a trash can up to her, because if she were to leave the cage, she would forfeit the match for her team. So she was getting a little bit creative. So she has a trash can with her on top of the War Games cage. She proceeds to stand up, put the trash can over her, and just leap down from the top of the cage into everybody. This happened one time before in War Games 3 years ago. This guy did this exact same thing. That actually, what was going on was Io Sky was the last person to enter the War Games match in 2020. So when she did that leap with the trash can off the top of the cage, War Games officially begun. It was just amazing to see history repeat itself once again. Overall, the match was very exciting. It was a solid match, and Belair's team was able to walk away with the War Games victory over Damage Control. Now, another thing my friends and I have been saying about Damage Control with this match is, where does Bayley lie going forward? Because really, ever since Crown Jewel and Kairi Sane came back, Bayley has been a little confused as to what's been going on. Because the last time we saw Kairi Sane, she was given the boot out of WWE by Bayley, who also was teaming with Asuka at the time. So Asuka and Bayley have quite the history as well. What my friends and I have been saying was, maybe Bayley is given the boot out of Damage Control and she's on her own. At that point, Damage Control would just be Io, Kairi, Asuka, and Dakota Kai. I mean, that hasn't happened yet, but it's just something that my friends and I have been talking about. So, really, where does Damage Control go from here? Next up on Survivor Series, we had the Intercontinental Championship match between Gunther and The Miz. Now, The Miz is already a decorated 8-time Intercontinental Champion, and should he win at Survivor Series, he would tie Chris Jericho with 9 Intercontinental title reigns, which is most all time. Now, my friends and I are kind of going back and forth on this, because my friends were saying that The Miz would be the right man to take the belt off of Gunther, where I keep saying it would be Chad Gable. Now, they didn't disagree, but they just felt like Gunther's reign as Intercontinental Champion should come to an end. It didn't. Gunther is still the Intercontinental Champion, but The Miz put up quite a fight exposing a turnbuckle, a low blow behind the ref's back, just doing whatever he can to walk away with the Intercontinental Championship. Unfortunately, The Miz wasn't able to do that, and Gunther is still the Intercontinental Champion. We got a real treat at Survivor Series, as Santos Escobar went one-on-one with Dragon Lee. Now, originally it was supposed to be Escobar versus Carlito, but this past Friday night on Smackdown, after some heated words were thrown back and forth between the two, a brawl broke out, and unfortunately Carlito was put on the injured list and wasn't cleared to compete at Survivor Series. Dragon Lee begging Nick Aldis for him to take Carlito's place to fight not only for the honor of Carlito, but Rey Mysterio. And the match delivered. I mean, I was watching SmackDown Friday night, and when I saw that it was Dragon Lee going to face Escobar this time, even my friends and I were like, this is going to be so much better with Dragon Lee. And my goodness, it was. It was definitely a proper representation of Lucha Libre wrestling, which is something that WWE is trying to do more of, and superstars like Dragon Lee are getting pushed so much, and superstars like Io Sky are getting pushed so much in WWE to have such these big spots and these big moments. Unfortunately, Santos Escobar walked away with the victory, but take nothing away from Dragon Lee, because he is going to do some phenomenal things in WWE. Just wait. Rhea Ripley had her next challenger in Zoe Stark, as they both went one-on-one at Survivor Series for the Women's World Championship. It was quite the test that Zoe Stark put up for Rhea Ripley. That's something that I knew going into this match, that it was going to be quite a challenge, because Zoe Stark can fight, and fight good. The only other woman besides Zoe Stark that I know can fight like that is Shayna Baszler. But that's something else. It was a decent match at Survivor Series for the Women's World title. There were a moment or two where it looked like Zoe Stark had Rhea Ripley beat, but it's just an unspoken rule at this point. Mommy's always on top. Rhea Ripley is still the Women's World Champion. Now, the next pay-per-view event is the Royal Rumble in St. Pete in January. That's for the main roster. So, who will face Rhea Ripley then, and even at the Rumble match, who would be the one to potentially face Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania in Philly? In the main event of Survivor Series, we had the men's War Games match. It was said to be a 5-on-5 match, where it's the Judgment Day members Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, teaming up with Drew McIntyre to take on the team of Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, and Randy Orton. Now, by the time we get to this match, Randy Orton isn't at the arena yet, as much as we know. So far, it's just a 5-on-4 situation. And going into this match, Judgment Day had the advantage. For a little while, they had a 5-on-4 advantage inside the War Games cage against Cody's team. But as the final 3 minutes were taken down to 0, there was just a bit of a silence in the Allstate Arena as they were waiting for Randy Orton to come down to War Games and enter the match. But it was actually Rhea Ripley that came out with a referee and Damian's Money in the Bank contract. Now, at this point, as this is happening, Seth Rollins has already been driven through a table and looks to be out at the moment. And just when it looks like Rhea Ripley is going to help Damian Priest cash in his Money in the Bank contract, Randy Orton comes out, and for the first time in about 16 or 18 months, Randy Orton is back for the first time in WWE since he was out with double fusion back surgery early last year. And man, it was a lot of fun seeing the Viper back in the WWE ring. Just RKOs left and right. One of the RKOs, however, delivered to JD McDonough, happened when JD was thrown off the top of the War Games cage and just fell right into Randy Orton's hands for the RKO. There was also a brief moment in the match where Orton looked like he was about to strike Jey Uso, because if you guys remember, it was Jey Uso and the Bloodline last year that put Randy Orton on the shelf for so long. But it looks like they were able to put that aside and take care of business in War Games. And Cody's team was able to walk away with the victory over the Judgment Day in War Games. But as exciting as some of the matches were at Survivor Series, there's one more thing I want to talk about. And it's the returns that happened in WWE at Survivor Series. In total, we had 3 major returns at Survivor Series in WWE. Now, first up happened after the Women's War Games match. We see Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, and Alpha Academy just chilling backstage, eating some Ruffles, watching War Games. Pretty Deadly then walks into the room and starts a debate with Otis on whether Ruffles are chips or crisps. It gets a little bit heated, and the Ruffles go all over the floor. As Pretty Deadly goes to clean it up, who pops out? R-Truth. I can't remember the last time we saw Truth on TV. Maybe it was that one time he was down in NXT last October. But either way, I am excited that the Truth is finally back in WWE. He is one of my favorite superstars on the roster. And his humor, his attitude, his energy, it's just a lot of fun. And I'm excited to see the Truth get back into the WWE ring very soon. Now, another one, which I was talking about a bit earlier on, was Randy Orton in the men's War Games match. But the biggest one the biggest return probably in the past 5 years, maybe in the past decade. Someone who I never thought I'd see in WWE again. CM Punk is back in WWE, and it still feels like a fever dream. I honestly don't know how they managed to pull that off, but here's a couple things that I do know about it. The only people that knew about CM Punk coming back were Triple H and Nick Khan. No one else knew about this. Which, going into my next point, there are videos which you can easily find on social media right now. Seth Rollins is visibly irate that Punk is back, because they have legit heat with each other. And Seth not knowing that he was coming back, I think it adds a little bit more fuel to the fire. I know this is a long pause, but please bear with me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything. But overall, Survivor Series was absolutely surreal. It was record-breaking. And WWE just keeps going uphill from here. And apparently Punk is supposed to be on Monday Night Raw tomorrow night. So hopefully by then, if he does show up, we can get some more answers. Or we may be left with more questions. I don't know. He's rumored to be on Raw, so hopefully we'll find out tomorrow night. I just can't believe he's actually back in WWE. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it this week for Cinema Smackdown. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving, Survivor Series, Disney's Wish, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you can get notified when new videos come out every Sunday evening. I'll see you guys next week.